A lot of fans, me included, are fascinated by all the components, all the moving parts. You know, an F1 race is a very, very intricate, complicated thing. All of those interactions with the drivers, the team, changing the cars, all of those sort of subtle design changes, I find really fascinating. As a player, to come in as a team principal, I think that is a really exciting opportunity.
In F1 Manager 2022, you take on the role of team principal. A team principal is really at the heart of a Formula One constructor team. Management games are all about making key decisions that have meaningful impacts, and that really rings true to the role of the team principal.
I think for the fans playing this new game, it's going to be a fascinating insight to a different side of Formula One, because we all think of the drivers, and I think the engineers have a reasonable profile. But I think through the game, you're going to understand all the work that needs to be done to build the relationships between the drivers, the engineers, the factories, so everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, to create the foundations and build the substance for a team to be successful.
Team principal is the person that holds an eclectic bunch of people together and finds a way to make sure every single one of them is motivated to the fullest extent of their ability. It's a very special person that excels as a team principal.
Traditionally, for racing games, you are the driver. This is really all about team management. For the first time, it's letting players experience what it means to be a principal in F1.
The player gets to choose a Formula One constructor team of their choice. They can decide, how they're going to develop their team. There's multiple different avenues for you to kind of spend your budget. Each one will kind of define what kind of team principal you are.
The board is the player's boss, effectively, so they're who you're going to answer to throughout your career as a team principal. They'll set you a target every season in the Constructors' Championship, where they want the team to finish. And meeting or failing that target will have a large impact on their confidence in you.
We really want the player to feel all the rewards and all the challenges that come with being the team principal, from hiring a new driver, hiring a new member of staff, going through defining what the car philosophy is going to be and how you develop that car. That's all encompassed in our gaming experience. Everything that you decide is going to have an effect further down the line.
So there's a number of different ways in which you can kind of try to develop your team, both over the season and over a long term. You might decide to improve your headquarters itself, so you can upgrade and refurbish and maintain facilities, and they will add bonuses to the rest of your team, whether it's improving the rate at which your car parts are developed or improving your driver's development. You might decide to focus more on staff more directly, so you can hire staff members from other teams, rival teams. You can scout them. They're going to hopefully have an impact on your ability to develop your car and win the races. Car development really is very flexible. There are many different ways you can approach it, whether it's trying to kind of iron out weaknesses in your car as it is, or emphasize strengths so you can go for kind of podiums at particular tracks, or researching for next year's car.
As the team principal, you're going to be making all the key decisions. So within the race itself, that's things like setting the strategy for the race. So when is the car going to pit? What tyres are you going to fit in those pit stops? Obviously, things are always changing. There could be cars that you're not expected to be in front of you. Maybe the weather changes. So you're going to have to be adapting that strategy throughout the race.
Usually there's, something that you didn't count on. There's some unpredictability there, or there's some opportunities to, gain an extra tenth of a second on your lap time. We want the player to feel like they have the opportunity to gain those fine margins.
Everything to do with how you manage your tires during a weekend, how many soft, medium or hard tires you have going into the race. That's really going to make a difference in this game as well.
The other key decision that's part of your strategy during the race is when the driver is on track, giving them commands for kind of their pace management and managing their fuel flow. So using those to maximise your strategy that you've planned prior to the race.
After the race day, you're back at the headquarters. You've got an inbox full of emails. You've got important decisions about which car parts you develop, which staff you hire and fire. So it's a broad experience. The thing that's going to really excite me, and hopefully a lot of players when they play this, is the depth of the game that we've created. It's not sort of basic tactics. There's a whole depth and a backstory to the game that the player can explore.
The key thing with a game like this is that realization that you've got to make those decisions, strategic decisions that happen across the races and during the races, and how those dynamics can change in literally a few minutes. That's what really sort of drives me, I think, makes me excited about this game. Looking at how from season to season the drivers change, not just hairstyles, but their attitude. You look at some of them become more confident, more aggressive, better at their job. I think a game like this absolutely has to be authentic.
F1's a really data-driven sport. We're using that huge database of information so that fans are looking at something as close to real life as possible.
I think having the driver scans in the game, they just build the authenticity rather than just an anonymous character getting in with certain stats. It means you can relate to them much more strongly.
For us, one of the key sort of pillars of the franchise that we want to build is make sure that it's 100% authentic. And the way to do that for the characters is obviously to bring the drivers here so that we get real, accurate models of them. Got over 200 cameras here that are pointing at me at the moment. They take over 400 images. It takes about 3 seconds to do that. So there's a lot of flashes, a lot of images, but it's all over in 3 seconds. And then we take those 400 images and they get turned into a 3D model. We project all the photographs back onto those models and create a single texture of the driver's head. And that's what we use in game. Once we've got the scan data and we create the models and the textures, they get loaded into the game. We have all the drivers lined up so we can balance their textures, make sure they look correct under the right lighting. The process itself is quite quick, but obviously we have a whole batch of drivers to do. It's probably sort of a week or so per character, per driver.
I'm very excited to be a part of F1 Manager 2022. I play a little bit of managerial games and I enjoy it a lot. I feel like if it can be as close to real life as possible, it's more immersive. And if it can be more immersive behind the scenes in terms of how to manage a team. Obviously I'm a driver, but I've spent a lot of time with the guys around. And I think just for people to get that experience and that insight into what we do is pretty special.
Not only do we have all of the wonderful drivers and the teams, but obviously we've got all the telemetry that's fed into that from previous races and previous seasons even, of how drivers respond to certain circumstances. That feeling of richness that I am running a team and it really does have those drivers is very exciting.
It feels amazing. I think people who likes you, your fans that can be using yourself in the game is always a special moment.
The main thing that sticks out for me is the level of detail the audio team and the wider development team have gone to capture that. It's amazing. And being able to sort of give that to the player will be one of the absolute joys of this project.
The F1 engine sound is a crucial part of the viewing experience. It's a crucial part of our game. So it's really, really important for us to do that justice and to have the most accurate engine sounds we can. We've taken the assets directly from Formula One, from the actual cars. The audio code in our game chooses the correct asset depending on what kind of corner it is, how fast the car's going, what the weather conditions are. We have rain on the chassis. There's a load of different crowd assets. The crowd is quite dynamic, so it responds to what happens in the race. Changing to an onboard view, we have a completely different set of sounds. You get a really throaty, angry sounding engine. We also have transmission sounds, the suspension rattling when the car speeds up. With a little bit of magic, it sounds like it does on the TV broadcast.
The dialogue system and specifically the radio comm system is all from the actual races. Real recordings from the drivers themselves speaking with their engineers on the radio. We've been delivered around 25,000 lines of dialogue. There's a number of events that can happen in game that will trigger these real-life lines. So as a player, when you're making your strategy changes, you'll hear your engineer or your driver respond or make a call out to match what you're doing. One of the really exciting aspects of this project has been working with our commentators, Crofty and Karoon. They're sort of some of the most recognisable voices in F1. Being able to add that to our game was one of the key aims from the outset.
Okay, David, ready to go when you are?
Welcome to the home of Formula One. We're in Great Britain at the magnificent Silverstone circuit.
I feel really privileged to be part of this wonderful game where you can be a team principal, where you can make the decisions that affect directly what happens on the track. But there's no good having that game without all the sights and the sounds of the track itself.
The team of writers at Frontier put together a script of the scenarios that they can see unfolding in the game. We've had a collaborative approach. You know, they've sent both Crofty and me thousands of lines, and then we've tweaked them and adapted them and used our own words in a way that we would use on a television broadcast. So we've tried to make it as authentic as possible. Hopefully when people play the game, that'll come through.
I'm loving the fact that I'm going to be immersed in this game and providing one of the key voices of it. I'm really excited about this.
And it's lights out, and away we go!